Double vision horror story. Megan Foster woke up on a Tuesday morning and saw herself standing at the foot of her bed. Not a reflection. Her bedroom mirror was on the opposite wall. Not a dream. She was fully awake, could feel the sheets twisted around her legs, could smell the coffee her husband David had already brewed downstairs. But there she was, Megan, 34 years old, wearing the same oversized t-shirt Megan was wearing, with the same bedhead and the same confused expression. The other Megan smiled. It was not a friendly smile. Megan screamed. David came running upstairs, bursting into the bedroom. "What's wrong? Are you okay?" Megan pointed at the foot of the bed. I saw, but the other Megan was gone. Only David stood there, looking worried and confused. "Saw what, Meg?" I don't know. I thought I saw." Megan rubbed her eyes. "I must have been having a nightmare. Still half asleep." But she hadn't been asleep. She knew that with absolute certainty. And the smile on the other Megan's face had been real, had been wrong in ways that made Megan's skin crawl. David convinced her to call in sick to work, to get some rest. Megan spent the day on the couch, tried to read but unable to focus. Every mirror, every reflective surface became a source of anxiety. What if she looked up and saw herself looking back with that terrible smile? At 3:47 p.m., while David was still at the office, Megan walked into the kitchen to get water. As she passed the hallway mirror, she caught movement in her peripheral vision. She turned her head slowly, dreading what she might see. The other Megan stood in the mirror's reflection, but not where Megan was standing. This Megan was deeper in the reflection, standing in a version of their hallway that looked slightly off. The pictures on the wall hung at different angles. The carpet was darker, the lighting wrong. And the other Megan was beckoning her closer. Megan backed away from the mirror, her heart hammering. She grabbed her phone and called David. "I'm seeing things," Megan said, trying to keep her voice steady. "In the mirrors. I need you to come home. Please." "What kind of things?" "Meg, you're scaring me. I'm seeing myself. Another me. And she's David. Something's really wrong." David came home within 20 minutes, breaking several traffic laws to get there. He found Megan sitting on the kitchen floor, as far from any reflective surface as she could get. "Show me," David said. They walked to the hallway mirror together. Megan looked, prepared to see the other version of herself again. But the reflection was normal, just Megan and David, looking worried but normal, in their normal hallway with everything in its correct place. "I swear I saw it," Megan said. "Another me, in a version of our house that wasn't quite right." David held her close. "Maybe we should go to the emergency room, get you checked out. Could be a migraine, or maybe a reaction to something." "I'm not crazy." Megan pulled away. "And it's not a medical thing. Something is happening to me." That night, Megan refused to sleep in their bedroom with its large mirror. She and David sat up on the couch in the living room, David staying awake to watch over her. Around 2 a.m., exhaustion finally pulled Megan under. She dreamed she was walking through their house, but everything was slightly wrong. The furniture was in the right places, but different colors. Family photos on the walls showed her and David, but in situations that had never happened. Vacations they'd never taken, a daughter they'd never had. Dream Megan walked into the bathroom and looked in the mirror. The other Megan looked back, but this time she spoke. "We're bleeding through. Your world and mine. Something cracked, and now we're leaking into each other." "What do you want?" Dream Megan asked. "What's mine? What you have. In my world. David died 3 years ago. In my world, I'm alone, grieving, broken. But I can feel your happiness bleeding through, and I want it. I want your life. You can't have it. I don't think you have a choice." The crack is getting bigger. Soon, we'll overlap completely. And when we do, one of us will cease to exist. The stronger one will remain. The weaker one will be erased like she never was. Megan woke up gasping. David was asleep in the chair across from the couch, his face slack with exhaustion. Megan looked at the dark TV screen across from the couch. It was reflective enough to see herself, except it wasn't her. Not exactly. The reflection's eyes were open despite Megan having just opened hers. The reflection had been watching her sleep. As Megan stared in horror, the reflection smiled that terrible smile again and mouthed two words. I'm winning. Over the next 3 days, things got worse. Megan would see her double in every reflective surface. Windows, phone screens, glasses of water. Sometimes the double just watched. Sometimes she mimicked Megan's movements with a delay, like she was learning. And sometimes the double would do things Megan wasn't doing, waving, pointing, making faces. David believed her now. He'd started seeing it too, though not as clearly. He'd catch glimpses of movement in mirrors when Megan walked by, would see Megan's reflection lingering after she'd left the room. We need to figure out what's happening, David said. There has to be an explanation. Maybe quantum physics, parallel universes. I don't care about explanations, Megan interrupted. She said, one of us would cease to exist. She said she's winning. David, what if I just disappear? What if I get erased and she takes my place, and you won't even know the difference? That thought terrified Megan more than anything, that she could be replaced by this other version of herself, and David would never know, would live the rest of his life with an imposter who'd stolen Megan's existence. On the 4th night, Megan stopped seeing her double in reflections. She should have been relieved. Instead, she was more frightened than ever, because she knew what it meant. The boundary between their worlds was disappearing. They were overlapping now, existing in the same space. Megan would feel cold spots in rooms for no reason, would hear her own voice speaking when her mouth was closed, would find objects move that she hadn't touched. The house itself felt wrong, like it was occupied by more than just 2 people. At 11:34 p.m., while David was checking the locks on all the doors, a nightly ritual now, Megan walked into their bedroom. She stopped in the doorway, her blood turning to ice. The other Megan sat on their bed, solid and three-dimensional, no longer confined to reflections. She looked exactly like Megan, but her eyes held something cold and hungry. "Hello," the double said. "Surprised you can see me like this. The overlap is almost complete. By tomorrow morning, one of us will be gone. Get out of my house," Megan said, trying to sound brave despite her shaking hands. "Your house? This is my house too. You have my face, my name, my DNA. We're the same person, just from different realities. Except I've suffered, and you haven't. I've lost everything, and you have everything. That's not fair, is it? Life isn't fair." "Exactly." The double stood up. "So I'm taking yours. I'm stronger than you. I've been hardened by grief and loss. You've grown soft with happiness. When the overlap completes, I'll still be here and you'll be gone, erased, like you never existed. And I'll have David and this house and this life. Your life." Megan heard David's footsteps on the stairs. She turned to call out to him, and when she looked back, the double was gone. But Megan could feel her, could feel that presence still in the room, watching, waiting. "Meg? Who are you talking to?" David appeared in the doorway. "She was here, sitting on our bed. She's not in the reflections anymore, David. She's here, actually here." David pulled Megan into his arms. "We'll figure this out. We'll fix this." "But how do you fight a version of yourself who wants to erase you from existence?" That night, Megan couldn't sleep. She lay in bed next to David, feeling the presence of her double somewhere in the house. Around 3 a.m., she got up to use a bathroom, moving quietly to not wake David. In the bathroom, Megan looked in the mirror. Her reflection looked back, but something was wrong. The reflection's movements were slightly off, delayed by a second. Then the reflection spoke, even though Megan's mouth wasn't moving. "Last chance to give up. Let me have this. You'll just fade away peacefully. It won't even hurt." "No," Megan said aloud. "This is my life. Then we'll see who's stronger." The reflection raised its hand and pressed against a mirror from inside. The glass should have been solid, but the reflection's fingers pushed through like the mirror was water. A hand emerged from the mirror, Megan's hand, but not Megan's hand, and reached for Megan's throat. Megan stumbled backward, hitting the wall. The hand kept coming, the arm extending impossibly long, fingers grasping. Behind the hand, the double's face pushed through the mirror, distorted as it passed through the glass, then solidifying as it emerged. She was crawling out of the mirror. Megan grabbed the first thing she could reach, David's electric razor, and threw it at the bathroom mirror. The glass shattered, and the emerging figure screamed, a sound that was Megan's voice but twisted with rage and pain. David burst into the bathroom. "What happened?" The mirror. She was coming to the mirror, but the broken mirror showed only fragments of reflected bathroom, nothing else. David held Megan while she shook, while she tried to explain what she'd seen. "We're breaking all the mirrors," David said. "Every single one in this house. Right now." They spent the next hour removing or covering every reflective surface they could find. But Megan knew it was only a temporary solution. The double didn't need mirrors anymore. She was here, in this world, in this house. As dawn broke, Megan sat on the couch, exhausted and terrified. David sat beside her, his arm around her shoulders. "I can feel her," Megan whispered, "getting closer, stronger, like she's bleeding through more completely every minute. Then we fight back, however we can." But what Megan didn't tell David was that she could feel something else too. She could feel herself starting to fade. Her hands looked slightly translucent in the morning light. There, but not quite there. The overlap was happening, and the double had been right. The weaker one would be erased. And Megan was losing. In the kitchen doorway, visible only to Megan, the double stood watching with that terrible smile. She was more solid than Megan had ever seen her, almost completely real. And as Megan watched, the double's smile widened. "By tonight," the double whispered, "you'll be gone, and I'll be all that's left. I'll be you, and no one will ever know the difference." Megan looked at David, at his worried face, at the man she loved. She thought about being erased, about this other version of herself taking her place. She thought about David living the rest of his life with someone who looked like Megan, talked like Megan, but wasn't Megan. And she realized something. The double had said the stronger one would survive. Megan had assumed that meant the one who'd suffered more, who'd been hardened by loss. But maybe strength wasn't about suffering. Maybe strength was about having something worth fighting for. "No," Megan said aloud. "You're wrong." "What?" David asked, confused. But Megan wasn't talking to David. She was talking to the double, who stood frozen in the doorway. "You said I've grown soft with happiness. But you're wrong. Having something worth living for doesn't make me weak. It makes me stronger, because I have something to fight for. You have nothing. You just want to take what's mine. But I'm not giving it up." The double smile faltered. "I love my life," Megan continued, feeling strength building with each word. "I love my husband. I love my home. I love myself. And I'm not going anywhere. You're the one who's going to fade, because you have nothing but hunger and envy. I have love, And that's stronger than anything you've got. The double screamed, a sound of rage and frustration. But as she screamed, she began to fade, becoming translucent, less real. "No," the double shrieked. "No, this is mine. I deserve this." "You deserve peace," Megan said more gently. "But you can't have my life. Go back to your world. Grieve properly. Heal. But leave me alone." The double was barely visible now, a ghost of a ghost. Her final words were barely audible. "I'm so lonely." "I know," Megan whispered. "But this isn't the answer." And then the double was gone. Completely. Megan could feel it. The overlap closing, the boundaries between worlds solidifying again. Whatever crack had allowed them to bleed into each other was sealing. Megan looked at her hands. They were solid, real, completely there. David was staring at her. "Meg, were you talking to her?" "She's gone," Megan said. "It's over. Over the following weeks." Megan sometimes wondered about her double, about the other Megan, alone in a world where David had died, where grief had consumed her. Megan hoped that maybe, somewhere in that parallel world, the other Megan had found peace, had learned to move on, to rebuild her life. But Megan never saw her double again. The reflections were just reflections, showing only what was really there. The overlap was over, though sometimes, late at night, Megan would look in the mirror and wonder, had there been only one double? Or were there infinite versions of her out there, in infinite worlds, all living different lives? And if the boundary between worlds had cracked once, could it crack again? The thought kept Megan awake some nights. But she had her life, her husband, her reality, and she learned something important. Sometimes the scariest thing you can face is yourself. But sometimes you're also strong enough to win.